A bit late waiting for you today.
I appreciate you following that lead.
Like he's never ever late, ever. He's never been late.
I was early today.
That's good. That's good. Well, good morning. Thank you for being here on this New Year's Eve. We did a Christmas Eve one. It was a little bit more sparsely attended, but I appreciate Rick being here. But no, it's all good. We're very excited about where we find ourselves getting ready to go into New Year's. There are many good things that are happening, but there are certainly some things, challenges, and some things we want to talk about going forward. I would say at this point from last week, I will say I want to put out a big appreciation to Chief Leiter, Tommy Leiter in the Pensacola Police Department. Last week I did my first work day. I promised we were going to do these once a month with different departments. I went out with the Pensacola Police Department, spent the day with them, and really appreciate what those men and women who work for our police force do for us in protecting us. I spent time in dispatch. I went out and took a ride. We even they had a raid. I went in on the pre-brief for that, and so it was got a chance to see about what goes on in the day of the life. And it was kind of sobering when they told you to put on the bulletproof vest. It sort of make you realize that there's a 99.999% chance I'm going home today, but that doesn't happen for everyone that works for the city. There are certainly some people that take some jobs that there's some risk involved with. And certainly I don't take that lightly, and it was good to have a chance to experience it with the day with them and see what they do. Incredibly dedicated people. I was there, unfortunately, when the call came in about the lady up there in the apartments up there by Creighton Road and Spanish Trail. They had found her, nobody had seen her for a couple of days. They had gone in there, and sure enough, she was found deceased. I was on the call at dispatch when that came in. So, and then I went out there with Lieutenant Reese, and had a chance to drive around with him some and talk about what was going on. But overall, I was really impressed with the individuals that work for our police department. There are three things we're going to continue to focus on the next year. We're going to get up to, I think, the day I was going out was the last day for the people of that last academy before they became full-fledged officers. So they have now added to our ranks. We have another class that's going to be starting in February, which will eventually bring us back up to that 152 sworn officers, which is sort of where we need to be at a minimum. I promised them we were going to get up to the right staffing level. We were going to focus on pay, and we were going to focus on training for them. So those will be a couple of things we will continue to do during the next year, 2019, as we continue to work and try to make our community safer. So those are some things we're going to be working on. I did get several calls from them about some issues we have in the downtown area, not just downtown, but all over. Question we'd had, I think, last time about where do we go because of some things with the DIB with panhandling. Those are things we want to address, but I think we really need to continue to move forward. I think I'm looking for, in a couple of weeks, we meet back with the county to talk about how we can begin to look at providing services for the homeless, both shelter and real services, and then we'll begin to address panhandling and those things. It is part of what we want to do, but I think if we go and address the panhandling prohibition without first providing services, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So I want to work through with that, and it's really got to be a county-city joint effort, and we're continuing to work on that. Other than that, today is New Year's Eve, so we hope you will come down and have a safe holiday here in downtown Pensacola. There'll be a lot of activities going on today here, both across the street at the Pelican Drop at the park, and I'm sure on Palafox tonight, significant amount of activities into the new year. So again, the weather's going to not be the greatest, so we please ask you to show moderation and caution as you go through there. But we want everybody to come down and have a fun time, and we're looking forward to being a part of that. As a part of that, I believe today, Chris, we're closing at 2. The city will be closed at 2, and so we will be closing here. The city will be closed tomorrow, but we will be back open on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We'll be back open here. So this is where we will be going forward. I will say one other thing with the weather. one of the things I've been a little disappointed on is how much drainage problems I've seen in some areas, especially driving off Main Street and some of the alphabet streets down here south of Garden, the Barrancas area. Again, we got an inlet there that continues to flood and doesn't go in, doesn't function. I want to work with Derek to figure out why that's going on. I want to figure out why we have some other flooding issues here in the Taniers and some other things we can be doing. I can't do much when the tide comes up, but if it's raining, we ought to be able to take care of the drainage and get it out of here and make sure it's not eroding our roads any further. So we've got some challenges I've seen. I saw it 9th in Gadsden the other day. We have some challenges 9th in Jackson. So we're going to continue to keep working on some of those areas where we have some drainage problems and moving forward with that. I think the winter weather here has exposed some of the problems that we have, and so we're just gonna have to find a way to fix those. That's something I think we need to do a better job at. I know we're working real hard on drainage at the county level, and I think we just need to be working a little bit harder on that as well here. So that's where we are today. I'm happy to answer any questions as we move forward.
Your PPD day?
Yes.
What surprised you? What did you learn?
You know, I think there are some things that we're looking at that we can be doing a little bit better, that are there, that we can help out a little bit. There were some things that were talked about, how backed up we get in fingerprints. You got to get the fingerprint, but then you got to have somebody else that verifies it. And we haven't been able to work with, the county has 2 people, the sheriff's office has 2 people that can do that. We're depending on trying to connect to somebody who we can work with when we can. So is there a way for us to find a jurisdiction, a sister jurisdiction that we can work with to improve some of those things? It was interesting just learning some of the things that are the back office side of it, how challenging, I think it's a great thing. I want to continue to do it with the body cameras, but how challenging it can be on space and what we're having to do and the time it takes to download and get everything back off everybody's body cam. So, you know, these were some of the things that I had not realized. And then, you know, again, the most significant impact to me was really the sobering sort of impact when you realize, you know, these people, they go out and there's, you know, they're not always dealing with people who have good intentions, and the challenges that happens. That was not, I mean, it's probably, I've worked a lot of different departments with the county and done some stuff that never really had that kind of impact. I mean, with the fire, to an extent, sometimes that happens, but it's a little bit more prevalent when you go spend a day working with the police officers. So, but it was a real good group. Everybody I met a lot of the new cadets. They were very excited about being part of the city. So overall, it was, I thought, a very good day. And I know that Chief Leiter has a lot of initiatives he wants to do about working with neighborhoods. He realizes in the conversations we've had that, you know, some of what we do will have to be shaped around different parts of the community to make sure that the community understands what we're there to do, and that we're there to be a complement and to work with the community in the way that they need us to work with them. So I really feel good about where he's going and working with his people. Like I said, I met with Lieutenant Reese, Lieutenant Goss, Captain Christman, and Captain Davis. Spent the day, and they took me around and really enjoyed getting to know the people over there at the police department.
What day was that?
Thursday, the 27th.
I know that pay and compression was something that was raised in the surveys and something you just mentioned. I guess what would it take to get better wages for our officers? We've
made a commitment to them in the campaign that we're going to find a way to add an additional 2% growth to them through the next couple of years. So we're gonna put that in there. I've talked to Chris about that as we budget. It's one of the things we've got to address. So we're gonna put some more additional funding in there for that. That's our plan when we come forward with the budget and what we want to do. You know, I think one of the challenges that we run into is the challenge of what it costs to train somebody, and you spend a lot of time training people, and if you're not paying them appropriately, then they go and take other positions, and then that makes us spend more money to go train somebody else to fill that position. But we need to make a commitment to those individuals. If they're willing to stay with us and they're willing to serve, that we have a path for them to move forward and a path that provides them some financial stability in that path. So, and I really think in the long run, if we can reduce turnover, we'll save money as a city as well. The other very interesting thing that we talked with, that I talked both with the chief about and Lieutenant Reese. Lieutenant Reese is an African American policeman. We talked about minority recruitment. How do we do a better job in introducing minority recruitment? And that was one of the things the chief talked to me about. He's got several young officers, African Americans, that he's very worried about losing because other agencies will come down and provide them more money. This is another reason the compression issue we need to be focused on, so that we don't lose our talent to other places as well. So, you know, it was evident in that process, but we also need to do a better job recruiting, and it was acknowledged. I think Lieutenant Reese told me he had sort of over time and being involved in his church and a variety of other things, had gotten other people interested in thinking about the police as a career, and had individuals he knew that had been brought into the force. We need to do a better job of just getting out there and recruiting, and figure out how we can show people that there are career opportunities to serve your community, and you know, make a decent living. You're not going to be Bill Gates, but you can have a good career, a stable career, and with a family, and do well. And I think we've got to do a better job of getting out there and recruiting. So we talked about that as well.
Did you get an update on the drone program?
Did not.
Did not, okay.
Did not get anything on drone. No, we did talk significantly about cameras, especially in downtown. Last week or the week before, I guess I'd met with Bobby Switzer, who I know doing all of his things, and you know, I said, if you want us to better understand, I know Quint's putting cameras on his properties downtown, and I encourage Bobby to do the same. It certainly helps us see what's happening more, and we've encouraged as many people as we can in the downtown area to begin to think about cameras. They help us gather what's going on, because we can't have somebody we can't have a policeman on every corner. We just have too many corners. So having surveillance on several of these buildings will let us see what's out there, and I think more and more, you know, we want to see what we can do with the city budget, but certainly there's some things we're not going to be able to put we're going to try to put more out there, but we don't have enough money to put cameras out everywhere. So we certainly encourage our private property owners that it would be good as well if they do that. That can certainly help us in doing the job that we're doing.
The cameras that you say Quint's putting up on his properties, those are his cameras, his system?
They're private cameras.
Would the PPD has access to them?
We would be. There was no discussion of live, but certainly we could, and it's not uncommon. Certainly, I know banks, other places have cameras. If something happens, they're there for the police to look at and figure out. I think there were some things that were used. We've had some disturbances in downtown and been able to find ways to use that. So, you know, anything that we can do about that, it helps us pinpoint things where we can't have somebody all the time. But there's no doubt the biggest deterrent will always be having somebody there, and that's why we need to have the proper staffing. We need to get back up to 152 sworn officers, and we're on the way to doing that. Jerry.
So you're talking about shortfalls, you know, and building back up the ranks at the police department. Over the weekend, in public input session of your transition team for public safety, the fire chief discussed, you know, a similar issue over there. What are your plans on?
We'll you know, again, we can we'll be looking at all this, what we can do across the city. But started with the police. I've learned there's a little bit of a rivalry between the police and the fire. So as soon as the police called, the fire immediately called me thereafter and said they wanted a day. So I'm going to be getting out there with Jenny. I've met with her a little bit, and we've talked about that. I met at length with the fire union during the campaign, and I know there's some challenges they're working with. Certainly pay is a part of that. They've got some other challenges as well that we want to continue to work on. So you know, I'll be going out with fire and taking a turn with them. But you know, again, my goal is to get all the departments. They're all important, and you know, it was fun. I went to some of the Christmas parties. I started getting a chance to go. I regret that some of them I had to miss because we had other things going on, but I did have a very good time with the sanitation department. I told them, I said, I feel like I've been on with Pensacola Sanitation since that was my first job in 1975 when I was 5 years old, and my dad told me to start taking the garbage out to the streets, so I feel like I've been involved with them for a while, but I'm looking forward to getting out there with them as well. So all the departments are important, and we're gonna get there. We can't do everything at once, but I'm absolutely committed to doing something for all of our different departments, and I'm looking to get with fire, but fire, just not just fire, like I said, public works, sanitation, parks and rec. It's been good. I had a good opportunity to drive with, go around with Brian Cooper and look at our parks and discuss some of them. We have several things that are happening. Certainly the challenge, the chance with the Y to both significantly improve the Vickery, but also really obtain a place for our soccer program, city soccer program at Hitzman, are opportunities for us as we move into the future. So there are a lot of good, exciting things happening in the parks area, but all departments are important. Kind of gets back to one other thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to mention earlier. I think over the weekend or last week on Friday, I think we were moving toward a solution that we hope to bring to the city council for resolving some of the fees and what happens over there, the pit slip and the area over there. So I think we've kind of come to an agreement with the owners over there, and essentially what we're looking at, they have about $535,000 worth of legal fees. Now, going back and forth, what could happen? The discussion we kind of came to an agreement on was they would settle theirs at $500,000 legal fees, but they would agree to pay us above appraised value. They would pay us $850,000 for the property, and so we would net $350,000. It's my intention, which was more of a spread than what the previous discussions were. But my position on that is I wanted $50,000 that we could offer to do pedestrian projects, whether it's lighting, whether it's crosswalks, whether it's bike lanes, whatever the councilman wants to do. That's $50,000 per district. Now I realize that won't go far, but it'll give them a chance to look at partnering with other money that they may have for a project in their area, whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's lighting, like I said. I think there's a very clear idea that we want to do bike pedestrian kind of work in all 7 districts. So I would like to find a way, rather than taking the little money we have and having to go pay legal fees, which neither this council nor this administration incurred, they were all incurred by prior administrations. I would rather go ahead and solve that by dealing with the asset that we have and moving forward. And I do believe that what you will see, what is being proposed, will be an opportunity for the public to utilize that area more so than what it is now, and the development that could happen for those houseboat rentals, and other things. So, I think it's an opportunity for the city. I don't think any of us like having to sell something, but at the same time, at this point, I don't think any of us got into this legal fees that are going to end up costing us and how we end up paying for that.
The road diet on Palafox from Jackson to Wright Street, you'd said in last week's press conference you were moving ahead on that. I think you had said even before that 2 weeks ago also. Was there a public workshop, some kind of discussion about that? How did that decision come to be made that stretch of road would be changed and changed how?
It had already been evaluated. My understanding they'd already looked at it. They already had plans set up for it. The issue was that again, we had not set forward, just hadn't been implemented. Some of the people in that area had come to us and said, what are you looking at, both in terms of parking, but in slowing down traffic, going up and down the hill. When I was campaigning, I stood there for one time on the corner of Wright and Palafox, and you realize there's not that much traffic moving on Palafox anymore. And the way we've constricted now Palafox really to one lane through the median section, it's really changed what has happened, making the other roads two ways so that it disperses traffic. With that in mind, we were sitting there with an asset that probably needed to, we needed to improve some of those things, and the idea was, how could we work and create maybe a bike lane and a more parking, and I think you can have more parking now on the hill, and we can have some bike lanes coming in, and then we can have single lanes going up and down the hill, deal with speed and traffic a little bit better, and also provide, again, better bike pedestrian kind of amenities.
So the goal is to go to one lane each direction, dedicated bike lanes, additional parking up the hill to the monument.
Correct. On both sides.
And that's, again, when were you said plans to be implemented?
They came to us, they had plans that were already there in the prior administration. We simply said, let's move forward with them, and we were told with Keith that that was the prior administration's plan, so we went ahead and said, let's move forward with it.
The reason I ask is because when I think about that area, like you said, if you stand there, there's not a lot of traffic anymore, and it doesn't seem like a danger area. I was just kind of trying to understand what the thinking behind making the change is.
Parking, and creates more parking, on-site parking, creates trying to deal with the bike lanes, and certainly trying to deal with, as we continue to think about looking at things that aren't just built for cars. Clearly, we had about that same time, we had the challenge from Miss Growley, who I think was on your radio show, who got hit right there up the street at Palafox and Cervantes. So, and I really think part of it is just an awareness thing. I don't think, I think that was one of those where the person was turning right and just didn't look because they weren't used to, they looked left to see if a car is coming, they turned right, and they didn't even bother to see if somebody was walking in front of them. And it's just more of an awareness issue. The more aware we can be of that and putting that forward, the better off we will be. But it won't happen until we begin to make some adjustments on what we want to do. We felt like there was an opportunity for us to put in additional street side parking in the downtown area, and to create, and it really wasn't needed for capacity anymore. Yes.
State Representative Mike Hill has proposed a bill to make it illegal for cities to remove Confederate monuments. Do you have a position on that, since we're talking about Palafox?
Wow. I didn't see that one coming right away, but I campaigned on a position that I don't believe necessarily. I think we've got to handle our history, and we've got to handle it respectfully. I've never believed necessarily taking stuff down makes us a better place. I think what makes us a better place is being respectful and realizing that we all have differences of how we got here. We all have different histories. What I'm more concerned about is where we go as a future, because that we actually do share together. We have separate histories, but we do share a future together. I think what we should be doing is a better job of telling the story of those individuals who have not done a good job with. I know I've talked with one of the members of the audience here, Admiral Leroy, about how do we do a better job of telling African American stories. How do we, I don't think, and this is one sort of comes into what we want to do probably in February or January, February, recognizing the county has recognized the 1955 JC's team, but the city never has. I think they should be recognized for what they went through. I think we have a variety of other histories that we have, but I think we need to do a better job of sharing it and doing it in a way that is respectful. The monument, is my understanding, on Lee Square was put forward by individuals who put forward to recognize those who died in the war. It doesn't necessarily do one thing or the other about saying what was happening there, other than those individuals, like we have other memorials for the monuments.
About the bill itself, you think the bill's necessary? Do you support the bill?
I think each community should be able, I do not support preemptions at all. I think communities should be able to do what they think is right. Every community should be able to make their own decisions. Personally, I don't think we make our community better by taking things down, but I don't think we need somebody to tell us we can't do that. I think we should be able to do that ourselves as our community. It would not be my position to do that. I do think we need to do a better job. We have not done a good job of telling the stories of women or minorities, African Americans especially, in this community, and we need to do a better job of that. So that would be the way I would rather tackle that. And at some point, that's my plan to, as we move forward. I just trying to get through some, like I said, some alligators close to the boat before we tackle that issue. But I'm glad you threw some hard balls right there, Rick. So now I'm happy to.
Number
happy to work.
5's fifth press conference.
happy to work. That's right. Did I set a record? Did I set a record?
Set the record.
All right. I'm set the
5 in
record.
a month.
Yes, Admiral Roy.
Yeah, I just want to comment on this Mike Hill situation. First of all, history is history, okay? We spent a lot of time talking about that Confederate symbol. And in the meantime, we got some real pressing things that's going on. Mike Hill, as far as the black community is concerned, he's grandstanding. He's trying to cater to a certain group of people with those comments. And quite honestly, he's a joke in many ways about that. He should be about the business of going on and trying to represent this area and do things in a way that what you're saying is that, yeah, these are things that might need to be addressed, but we don't need the state legislature to come in and tell the city of Pensacola what they should or shouldn't be doing. And for him to kind of stand out like that, to me, for the years that I've been around here, he's truly grandstanding. I even helped him get in office the first time he went in office. And he came in a way that made the black community feel that he was going to be a good representative for all the people. And then he come in and he makes some decisions, and he goes to the Baptist Ministerial Alliance, and they stiff on him. They told him that they didn't want to be bothered with him only because he was trying to straddle the fence and trying to satisfy people on both sides.
Well, and again, if there's a question for me, I'm more than happy to answer it. My goal is not to address Representative Hill, but I appreciate the comments.
Well, excuse me for doing that. It just kind of made my skin crawl with his name to come up about this Confederacy situation. And in my opinion, you being the new mayor for the city of Pensacola, there are a lot of things you're going to have to tackle. And I'm just saying there are a lot more important things than that Confederate symbol, because it represents what was and what history is, and there are things in the black community that will be represented in history, as you're saying, the Bruce Beach, and there are things that we could be doing other than concentrating on that. But let me switch gears. When I came in, you were speaking about the police department hall, and this may be a question for Chief Leitner.
Okay.
What kind of program is in effect to combat crime in our neighborhoods, particularly the African American community is being saturated with drugs, and one of the excuses young people are using in our community is that, okay, well, what are you going to replace the income with? I have figured out how to distribute drugs and make enough money to survive, so to speak, but I can't seem to get a job, or I can't seem to qualify for a program. So if I stop distributing drugs, what's going to replace it? And then in the meantime, we got some gang banging going on here that is not being really talked about that much. I lived in Los Angeles for about 13 years, so I'm quite familiar with gangs and proliferation of gangs and subcultures and all of that. I see quite a bit of that creeping in to small communities like Pensacola. Now, I know that the sheriff department has mentioned on previous occasions that there was this gang unit, but my question is, okay, with the gang unit, are there any kind of programs that are being developed or already in place that will kind of help people, say like myself, we want to get out there and try to help stop some of this? What do we do?
Well, I think it's a two-pronged approach, and I do think that's one of the things that will come out of this with Brian Wire. I know Brian's been at almost every press conference, but he's not here today. Brian is doing economic development. He's the chair of the it's now the Gulf Coast Minority Chamber. And one of the things we've got to do a better job of is establishing opportunities for small businesses and places to thrive, absolutely. And that's what we want to figure out ways on West Cervantes, West Garden, and other places there to enable the community to come back and be successful with businesses that are there that will thrive for individuals that are in the community. That's part of what we want to do with the economic side. On the police side of that, I do believe Chief Leiter has been out there and been working and trying to address some of those things. I know one of the things I was briefed on was a SWAT engagement that happened last Thursday to deal with a drug situation and a guns raid. So I did get a chance to go in and see them as they set up for that, and I know they were dealing with getting ready to go out and address that. I mean, I know that they are taking on those kind of actions and they are pursuing. They have people that they're working with both crossways with the sheriff's office, but certainly within the city. And I know that's continuing. Part of that will be getting out in the neighborhoods, and I realize, Chief Leiter and I did talk about that. We did talk about how we get out in the neighborhoods and realizing each neighborhood will be slightly different in the way they want us to police, and working with that neighborhood to establish trust with those people and understanding that we are there to work with them, and we're there to solve problems to make the community better. And I think along those lines, that's just going to continue to take time for us to work with. I have been impressed with his willingness to get into the community and be involved with officers there. And so I just want to continue to support him in that effort, and we're going to continue to keep working.
Well, I think that's what I was leading up to, Mr. Mayor. The fact that years ago, I was a former classroom teacher here at Escambia County. And what I have seen is how our young people, and it's not just black, but mostly black, but white too, 14, 15 years old, being recruited into the drug distribution business, and while the so-called higher-ups just sit back and watch them do all the work, but they put their hands on just enough money to steer their minds away from various types of educational programs that really could put them in a place that's a whole lot better than taking chances. And then they are actually eliminating each other. They're wiping out each other. When you hear, you pick up the newspaper and you see where a killing took place among 2 or 3, and then you look at the age group, and they're running from 16, 17 to 23, 24 years old. And I just always ask myself, well, what is it that maybe we're not doing that we could be doing that might help kind of steer that away? Because the one program that I saw going on in Los Angeles when I was there was Hall of Fame football player Jim Brown had a program where he would get out there ridden to the heart. He called it the belly of the beast, where he got out there like you were saying that the chief and all would do. And what he was able to do is recruit, but he was also able to get monies from various people that had the wherewithal to offer something in place. You're getting $300 or $400, $500 a day, or maybe $600 or $700 a week distributing drugs. Okay, well, you want me to stop that, so where do I go? And that was a program that I thought that was...
And there may be an opportunity for us to partner with the private sector as we look at how do we deal with that. I mean, you're a little bit more detailed than we're prepared to get to. Not to say that's not where we want to get. We want to get there. We're just not at that particular time where we can begin to address that. But we do realize, one, we need to do a better job of engaging our children and making sure that there are activities for them to do. We're going to continue to do that with our community centers. We need to figure out a way to get more economic opportunity, and that's one of the things we want to do. And then we need to work with the police to make sure those challenges aren't in the neighborhood, and the opportunity for them to go in the wrong direction occurs. We those are things, but we're not going to solve it overnight. It's just kind of going through all the process. But we haven't developed a plan yet for what we're going to do for the economic opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing the transition team. How do we move that forward? How do we begin to take those different areas and those different block by block areas and begin to give economic opportunity?
And of course, it's going to take the community too. The neighborhood's going to have to step up. And
that's where we want to participate with them. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I do want to say real quick though, there is a part of that monument that I do believe needs to be changed, Rick, and I believe the most offensive part of that monument is actually the stairs leading up to it, because the stairs are focused on the separation. They're not focused on the reunification. And I think what we should be celebrating when you talk about the issue of the Civil War is the fact that not that it happened, or we should be trying to ignore that it happened. What we should be saying is, as a community, we should be celebrating the fact that we actually fought something like this. We had these challenges and differences, and we are now a country still moving forward with a future together, working together. I think that is something that we rarely celebrate, but it is something that we should do, and I would rather see those steps reflect the years that those states re-entered the union rather than when they separated. And I do believe, that's something I talked about as I was on the campaign trail, and we will do at some point. I just haven't had the chance to figure out how to do that. I went to I think you were there, the lynching ceremony in Plaza Ferdinand. I thought that was done in a very good way of reconciliation. And as challenging as difficult as our history is to somewhat do, I think at some point we need to acknowledge that it happened. I don't want to be disrespectful to any side. I thought the way that was handled that day, and the way that Tinyati Broughton handled that with the family that came up, and she kind of diffused and said, "We're not here to point fingers at any side or one way or the other. We're simply said it happened, acknowledge it, and that we're making a better life going forward." And I think that's probably the same way we need to deal with that chapter of our history. I think if we do it the right way, I think we can position ourselves in Pensacola as one of those southern communities that has learned how to deal with this challenge and be respectful. And that's what I want us to do. If we can find a way to be respectful about our history, I think it will push us so much further into what I'm really more concerned about is, what do we do with our future? Our future, to me, is much more important.
Since we're kind of in this vicinity, Mayor Hayward swapped out the Confederate flag for the Florida flag, kind of the city of 4.5 flags now.
5 flags still, we just have a different one.
So are you satisfied with that as a permanent solution? And
Well,
then does that play out like the Pensacola Police crest and things like that? Do you put that everywhere, or what's your thought about that?
Well, I'm the one that made the motion to make that the official position of the City of County. So, for the most part, on 4 flags, we defer to the City of Pensacola, and on the 5th flag, we do that. I created that motion back in July of 2015. It's there, so from that standpoint, that's the position that where we are. I think from the county standpoint, I would love to see the same thing here, which is kind of interesting as we went through the campaign. I didn't realize that at this point the city has not taken an official position. That was simply the mayor. I think we probably should evaluate that and at least go forward with the county as taking that position as an official position. And I think at least where it flies, it does fly with the state flag. And I made the motion there. I said, listen, this is our Southern heritage. We're going to have a flag that we're going to have the flag that represents that heritage, but we're going to do it in a respectful way. And I think at the end of the day, the state of Florida flag did make sense, and I had no problem making that motion at the county level. So I think at some point, it probably does need to become the official position of the city of Pensacola.
What you were talking about with the monument, with the steps and stuff, would that include an amendment or alteration or?
We don't need an amendment. We would need to have an alteration to the steps. We would need to put something else on there, but we don't need any amendment. It's our property.
Not an amendment like an amendment, but an amendment to the property, like.
Oh yeah, we'd have to go down and change something on the steps. Correct.
Any other contextualization that the city would want to do?
At this point, it's like I said before. I didn't come this morning planning to discuss this topic. Rick decided to drop it in here, so at least, these are ideas that I would like to do going forward. Again, we have a lot of things going on. At some point, we're going to implement this, and I'm just kind of answering the question, letting you know where my thoughts are as we go forward. But I do think at some point we're going to address it. It's just not going to be today, but at some point we will. Yes.
Any concerns that the federal shutdown might delay getting a contract for the ferry service?
Man, I hope we don't shut down that long into March. I don't know what's happening there. I'm just going to I'm going to stay out of that one a little bit and just give my plug for local government. I love local government, and I've only run for positions in local government because I believe the most important thing is we've got to get along. We've got to find ways to make it happen. You see that every year in July, August, and especially in September when we have to create budgets. We can't print money. We can't do anything else. We have to eventually sit down, all of us together, and figure out a solution that we can agree to. Nobody gets everything they want, and that's okay. It's probably the best budget. If anybody's getting everything they want, that's not a good budget. So everybody should do a little bit of give and take. Again, I don't want to get caught up into the federal issues. I just want to say I do believe the local government does it right in what happens. And I wish in some ways, rather than being in these perpetual fights, I wish our federal government and our state government could learn to work together and learn to work with their local authorities to keep moving things forward. There are good things we can do for this community. There are good things that we can do in this country. And I think it just takes a spirit of everybody working together and cooperating. And I see that in local government every day, and that's why I'm proud to serve in local government, and we're going to continue to keep doing that.
And another, I guess, kind of budgetary question. I know looks like we didn't get all the funding we were hoping for the ST expansion. And I know, I guess, 20 million may have to come from the city. I guess, can you walk me through, I guess, how that might work out?
Well, we internally can absorb, and we will have to walk through some of those issues on that 20 million. You know, I think in talking with, we can do this in a short-term way and continue to keep finding other solutions on that. We still have 25 million that we have to do. You know, the conversation I had, it was a meeting I had, I guess, that Friday right before Christmas. We met with both Rick Harper and Senator Brox, and you know, the interesting part is everybody says, well, we don't have the money, but everybody is committed to the fact as we walk out of there that we're not going to let this thing fall through. We're going to find the money. So, you know, I think it's going to be more of a solution of perhaps that $25 million deficit is taken up by some federal, state, and potential triumph. I think somewhere probably the three of those sources could take those over. As I communicated, the city through some short-term stuff can take care of the 20 million and work through that. And you know, the city and the county have already put in a good amount of money that we've put in from our standpoint. So, you know, the local government, I believe, is putting stuff in this last 25 million. We really need some help. And I want to be real clear, this continues to get confused about is this money that's given for a private company. It is going to bring an industry here, but everything here is public sector. The buildings, the tarmac, everything that happens going on with this will be publicly owned. It is what I consider public infrastructure. Just as important as what we talked about when we first talked about the roads, we talked about the diets, we talked about the drainage. These are things, they are public sector infrastructure, and you need all of that. You can't make things happen without an airport. Think about a community, think about what today, trying to have a community without an airport. We need all those things there. And one of the things that this allows us to do with the MRO industry, it allows us to bring more people to Pensacola because they're going to have more planes coming here because some of them will be getting serviced while they're here. The more planes we bring here, the more people we bring here, the better off we're going to be doing with our tourism industry. So again, this is public infrastructure that is just as important as a lot of different other public infrastructure. Just because we happen to be contracting with one company for the hangars at this particular time, they will still be public infrastructure and will be moving forward. And I try to remind everybody else that when Panama City needed to get an airport, we had no problem building them an airport through state funds and a variety of other funds, significant money. So at some point, this 25 million, we need to figure out how we do it. We need to get it done. It's good public infrastructure. It will create jobs and it will make things better. If we don't have those jobs and those things, we can't give economic opportunity to those other neighborhoods that we talked about in dealing with our drug problems that we were talking about and policing problems. So all these things play together. They all tie together. It's an important message that we've got to work through. And at least I'll say this, as we walked out, everybody agreed that we had to get it done. They weren't sure how we were going to get it done, but that's just what we got to work over the next 90 days. And we've stayed focused and we're going to continue meeting on that. That's priority number one. Looking back there at Chris, we talk about it all the time. How do we keep getting that 25 million secured? So it is number one priority for us.
You keep saying 25. I thought we were at 40.
Um,
Five unknown, 10
gonna-
from the governor and 25 from FDOT.
City's going to be able to absorb probably 20 of it through some short-term funding, and then we'll have to find long-term solutions. But we can probably absorb 20 of it with short-term funding. So that kind of puts us out that we really got to find the 25.
I just thought we were at 40. That's why I was confused. So.
But we're 45, but we think
okay.
we can absorb 20, and so that puts us back to the 25 that we were expecting from FDOT.
Okay.
Yes.
Who would you like to see appointed to the Triumph Board?
You know, there are a lot of good people, names who I've heard mentioned. I think any of them could certainly do a good job. I think the most important thing is that we get somebody from Muscogee and Santa Rosa County. I think that's more important than who it is. You know, I've heard legislative people like, is it going to be Frank White? I think Frank has done an excellent job for this area. I mean, I certainly could support that. I've heard, would it be somebody with Gulf Power like a Keith Hoskins? I think Keith would be excellent on a number of cases. Gulf Power, what they do in economic development, and really putting some diversity on there. So there are a lot of good Pensacolians and probably some good Santa Rosans as well that could be a part of Triumph. I think the more important part is that we have somebody from the western side of the area that serves on the Triumph board, and we get that done.
Is the IHMC proposal going back in January?
You know, it's going to be challenging to figure out that. I actually met with, I had lunch Friday with Kim Ford. We talked a little bit about the port and what's happening. I think Ken may be trying to decide how he can go forward with marine research, but not necessarily work in Triumph. He just wants to see something happen. He's not sure that they totally understand or committed to what research can be, and he needs to build upon that. He and I made a commitment that whether it was opportunities that we had to find research funding at the state or federal level, that we would support them in our legislative initiatives when we go to Washington or Tallahassee. I think if we can do research, the better we are at knowledge-based business, the better opportunity that we are at giving ourselves opportunities to be at the future and the cutting edge point of what we do. We will make Pensacola better. We need to be involved in research. Is it through dollars that would come to the university? Is it through research dollars that have come to IHMC through dealing with military issues? However those happen, whether we're in DC or Tallahassee, we've got to be committed to working with IHMC to help them find other research funding. So I think that's probably the direction we'll go. There are other challenges, obviously, that Triumph has. If we obtain additional money from Triumph, they have a concern with what that appearance will be, with other communities, and the fact of us asking for other projects. So, I'm not sure the port project at this point is going to move forward with Triumph, but that doesn't mean the port project doesn't move forward with research. It just may delay it in a way that it happens. But I do know that Kim was adamant that he wants to continue to do more research, and he believes marine research can be done here in Escambia County and at City of Pensacola, and I totally agree with him. And I'd love to see something at the port that does that. I'm just not sure how we do it at this particular time.
I know it's been a long press conference, so I appreciate your time and patience. Last question from me. Earlier you talked a bit about homeless services, like instead of just prohibiting providing services. I know at the county's homeless summit, you guys said that you didn't want to be necessarily doing food distribution, or I guess what do you see as the city's role in providing services for the homeless?
I think there are a number of people. I think number one becomes shelter. How do we deal with shelter and what is here? We have some great shelters, but we don't have any shelter that is a come as you are. And I think one of the biggest challenges is is we know a lot of the people that are there, they have either mental health or substance abuse issues. That's how they end up homeless. And so in dealing with that, you've got to get them in first, get them shelter, and then begin to see what's going to happen. That's why I think the services I'm talking about, I mean, food I guess is a part of it, but more what I'm thinking of is how do you partner with the Lakeviews and the other places that deal with both substance and mental health. Those are services that typically most people that are on the street and homeless have challenges with. And again, I think those are the areas that you need to figure out how to work. Now, all of them will not be local government. It will not be our responsibility to solve all that. But local government needs to find a way to say city and county are going to work together. And we're going to find ways to work with other agencies like a Lakeview or somebody else. But we're also going to need private sector there with us. I mean, part of this, is not going to be solved without an ability to have private sector involvement there And I think the private sector should be engaged in this process. How that happens, I'm not exactly sure, but if we can begin to find a place, we can look at a shelter that can offer some services. I think we begin to say in our process, in our community, if this is where you are, we want to find ways to help you, but we want you to seek the help we have. And if you don't want to seek that help, then there'll be other issues that are there. You don't. It's a free country. You don't have to live in Pensacola. There are other places you can go. I think the issue we will have is we want to find a place to deal with those who have problems and find ways, opportunity for them to solve them. But if they're not interested in taking us into those services, that comes down to the other part is I think where the panhandling side of it is, again, there are going to be other things that need to happen. I mean, I saw somebody stopping traffic today to give money to somebody. That is disappointing to me in so many levels. One, I don't think you're helping that individual by giving them $1. It's going to allow them to sustain at a level that they're not getting treatment, because that dollar is going to be used to spend on things that, it's just like the guy who has the sign and says, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm going to buy beer. That's what's happening with that. And so again, if we can find ways to give people opportunities to invest in something that really takes care of that individual, then we do that. If those individuals don't want to use the services we have, then they don't necessarily have to be here. They can go to a different community.
I wanted to mention one thing, that the transition team public meeting on transparency is going to be January the 16th, which is a Wednesday, at 5 o'clock at the downtown branch of the public library, and I encourage all the media to attend.
January 16th at 5 o'clock?
At 5 o'clock.
At the public library.
Yes.
So January 16th, 5 o'clock, public library will be the public meeting for transparency for the transition team. So I wanted to announce it here, at least with the streaming, that they might hear it a little bit better and know that opportunity was there. Again, one of the things I'm very excited about is the transition team will be taking the month of January to get out to the public, and that'll be good. The other thing is we've set on a date for our first public. We're going to get out in the communities for a town hall meeting. We're going to be January the 24th. We're going to be at Woodland Heights. I'm not sure right now whether we're going to be a 5:30 or 6 start, but we will be there at Woodland Heights. I've talked with Councilman Wingate, and I know I look forward to working with him in that District 5 area, and we're going to go there and looking forward to having our first town hall in District 5, and then we'll rotate to another district next month. So we have a date. We will begin that process, and we're excited to start there. Thank you very much. It's been a long day, but certainly enjoy the remainder of 2018 and look forward to working with you all for 2019. Thanks.